Hello, this is the second part of the story of the Gardening Princess. You'll remember we left it with the bird having told the Princess Samsari of Indra's plans to send a mighty army of mice and rats to eat the plants that she and the villagers had grown. Here's where the story continues. The cat, when he heard the bird's news, came up to the princess and said, "Princess, do not worry. I will help you, for I know hundreds of cats who live in and around the villages hereabouts. We will lie in wait and we will kill and eat the mice and rats that Indra will send. You have no need to worry at all." The bird flew around and told as many cats as he could find the news of what was to happen, and the next day they sat and waited. They could hear it in the distance, a scurrying, squeaking sound that grew louder and louder and louder, and into the clearing where Samsari had her garden came an absolute army of rats and mice. They began to climb over the plants, squeaking and squealing in delight, but their delight soon turned to terror when out of the shadows leapt cat after cat after cat, and the cats wasted no time at all in biting and killing the rats and mice. Soon a great mountain of them was littering the clearings, and those that were left turned around and with squeaks and their tails between their legs ran as fast as they could, never to be seen again. The cats were mightily pleased with their work, and there was a huge amount of mice and rats to be eaten. And for the next couple of days they gorged themselves silly, sleeping away the afternoons trying to work off all of the food that they had eaten. Indra looked down. He hadn't expected that. "What shall I do?" he said. "I don't normally fail. I know. I have the exact thing. Birds! Birds will do the job. I will send down an army of birds to peck and pluck and eat the plants that they have planted." Ah, what a brilliant idea! And he was so pleased with his idea of sending birds, he didn't notice the green bird that was hopping around on the lawn. But the bird flew down and told the princess what the god had said. "I can't help you there," said the cat. "I'm far too fat and lazy now to try and kill birds as well. Oh, what shall we do?" And a voice from the hut called out, "Princess, I will help you this time. I and all of my brothers and sisters in the forest will come in and we will weave a sticky web over the plants. That way, when the birds come and try to peck their way through, they will become stuck to the web, and soon enough they will leave because they won't be able to flap their wings." So, overnight, hundreds and hundreds of great big spiders, hundreds and hundreds of medium-sized spiders and little tiny spiders appeared and began to weave webs. They covered the whole of the valley with it. It was like a shining, shimmering, gossamer blanket. In the morning they stood and waited. They could hear the sound of birds' wings flapping, a mighty mountainous sound that grew and grew as the sky grew dark, and into the garden flew hundreds and hundreds of huge black birds. They launched themselves down towards the plants, but the moment they touched the sticky webs, they began to get caught. They twisted and they turned, but their feathers got all gunked up with web and spider stuff. Oh! They began to caw and caw, and the others who had not yet landed circled overhead and then turned and disappeared. The ones that were left pecked away frantically and managed finally to free themselves, and then they too left. The plants were all saved. But a drought, a flood, a plague of mice and rats, and a plague of birds had absolutely wrecked all of the plants in the kingdom, and the people were now hungry. They blamed the king for what had happened. They blamed him for sending the princess away, and they certainly blamed him for involving the god in what had been happening to them. The poor king realised that he had made a mistake. He went back up the mountain and found himself face to face with Indra. "I am sorry, Indra," he said. I have been such a fool. All I wanted to do was punish my daughter, and really I should have been proud of everything that she did. As it is, my pride has caused great suffering to the people I am supposed to look after. I am not only unworthy to be in the same company as my forefathers, but I am the lowest of them all, for I have taken no care of them at all." Indra smiled and put his arm around the king. Then he pointed down at the valley. "It would seem," he said, "someone is already taking care of your people, king. Look." As the king stared down, he could make out a whole snaking line of people, all leading towards the valley where Samsari had her home. "I will take you down and you may speak to the princess yourself," said the god, and he climbed aboard his magic horse, hauling the king up behind him, and in no time at all they had landed at the edge of the clearing. People were waiting in line, and Samsari was standing behind an enormous bowl from which she was dishing stew and rice to the people. She also gave them a small handful of seeds and told them to go away and plant as soon as they could. One by one the grateful people thanked her and moved along. The king joined the line, and at last it was his turn to come to the bowl. "Father," said Samsari, surprised, "what are you doing here?" "Oh, daughter, forgive me," said the king, and he fell to his knees. Samsari was surprised. "Forgive you for what, father?" "As you can see, I have saved the plants, and the plants have saved the people. Now, come up and help me to dish out the food. I'm sure everyone will be very, very grateful." The king spent the rest of the day standing alongside his daughter, doling out packets of seeds and bowls of rice. Up on his mountain, Indra smiled. The king had learned his lesson, and Indra was prepared to put things right. He waved his hand, and in that instant all of the wrecked plants began to grow again. And when the people returned home, their gardens were as green and lush as ever, but they all had a little packet of seeds that had come from the princess. She went home with her father to live in the palace, and in time she did indeed marry the prince of the king who had caused all the problem in the first place. He, it turned out, had always wanted to be a builder or an architect, and his father had always thought that was beneath him. So when their parents died, the two of them set about putting things right in the kingdom. They built and grew a great many things and were much loved by the people. And that is the story of the gardening princess.